I cannot wait for you guys to hear about Phil Jackson. Actually, no, we don't have Phil Jackson. We have a coach, a real estate coach, who loves to talk about ways to add value to business owners who hopefully are going to get into real estate and get really rich, just like him.
Right.
Scott, what's up? Scott Poirier, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man, good to reconnect with you here, Kenner. I love talking to you. You smile easy. I just love our connection, and thank you for having me in on your podcast here.
You bet it.
Looking forward to
You got a
sharing.
good personality. It's going to be fun chatting with you. I know we're going to add some value to some listeners and some viewers. So as you know, most of our people are real estate investors. Pretty much all the people watching and listening to this. This is also going to be a part of our vast cast, which is also going to be basically a part of a webinar.
Yep.
So we're here to add value. We've got to add value. At the end of the day, if you haven't add value, you're going to be deleted. No.
Yeah, I got you. Right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send money to everybody on your list. I think that's value, and maybe we can start there.
I like that. Now we're talking. I like that. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Why are you here hanging out with me?
Well, I got to tell you, and our initial connection was I had talked to you. We had met a while back, and you were asking that question. And I'm definitely into real estate. I'm sort of the big umbrella statement is I'm in creative real estate, but that's like talking about coleslaw. It's like 1,000 ways you can make coleslaw.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's the value of being creative. So there's a lot of ways that once you learn kind of what I call deal structure stuff, once you know how to look at potential deals and you can get a little creative, man, you can smell stuff in places that most other people cannot. I can tell you that a lot of times, like wholesalers, for example, and this is not to pick on wholesalers, you can make some pretty good money on wholesaling, but they leave a lot of money on the table because sometimes they bump into a property, they can't get the right price for it, they can't give the seller what they really want, and they just move on to the next property, where I might be able to give that the sniff test and go, hey, maybe I could give the seller their asking price if I know that I can do something with that property in a creative way to maximize it on the back end. So there's a lot of different ways that we can do this.
People do not realize if you get a little creative, you can make a lot of money and open doors. So instead of going into it, let's say a city where there might be, I'm totally pretending, 20 properties available. And because you have, creative financing, who knows, maybe that universe of properties becomes 30 properties. So you have that many, more shots on goal versus just looking at this is the price of a deal, et cetera. Being creative in the financing means all the difference, difference.
Yeah. I'd love to give you an example of a deal that I'm working on right now.
Please do. I've been waiting all day. What's been going on?
Been in the house. I'm networking actually with one of my clients that I've worked with here for some time. And so he generated the lead. We got on the phone with this guy. It was just yesterday. My client went and looked at the house last night, took in fact, I don't want him taking less than 80 or 100 pictures. I want to see pictures. We live in two different states. He's in Oklahoma. I'm in New Hampshire, of all places. That's God's country, just in case you wanted to know. That's
totally.
To be, right? So this guy is willing to sell his house. This came in on a bandit sign.
On a what?
A bandit sign or a yard sign that simply says full price for your house and a phone number. That's it.
Oh.
Not just anybody's going to call that number, but some people will who knows what's going on in their life. Mm-hmm. So this guy calls, we have a conversation, and I decide to pitch this to him as we're sort of talking through it, not in a salesy way, but we're sort of I'm just opening this thing up by saying, hey, tell me about the house. Are you living in it? Are you renting it? Is it vacant? Mm-hmm. Three really important questions. And by the way, even if you knew the answer ahead of time, you ask it anyway. You got to get some dialogue going, right? So this guy tells me, no, I'm living in the house. I'm single. I want out of Oklahoma. I do not want to be in this state anymore. So we start talking. And so he's telling me that he's willing to sell the house. Initially, he wants cash, like $185,000 is where he's at. The ARV, now ARV is a term that we use that means after repaired value. Now, from a creative standpoint, when I'm trying to do like owner financing with someone, after repaired value looks different than if a realtor is looking at after repaired value. We got a little bit more, we have a little bit more liberty where I'm more concerned about square footage. I don't care about beds and baths, but I don't care if there's a pool in the backyard or not. It's more about the square feet, and I can have even some liberty on that as well. I could even go 100 or 200 square feet more, and I know I can still pay a pretty good price, where if you're doing it in the traditional way, you're locked in on your comps. With that said, the ARV on this thing is probably around like 230,000. This guy wanted to sell for 185. I'm pretty sure it's going to need 10 grand in there.
Mm-hmm.
As we're talking, I realize the pain source is this guy wants out ASAP, but he needs some money.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got some hardship. He's got tax liens on the property, about $7,000 worth of tax liens.
Mm.
So as we're talking through this, and I present to him that, hey, let me just tell you how I typically buy. This is very deliberate language. I like open-ended words, typically, usually, normally. Okay? They're just very open-ended because it gives me room, Kenner, right?
It does give you a little wiggle room.
It gives me room to say, okay, you would never do that? Well, I can also do this. So I don't lock him in by saying this is the only way that I do it.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very open-ended. So I got a lot of room to play in my sandbox.
You're also a linguist, clearly. Yeah.
Clearly, yes. I mean, you really are. Once you get sort of these, I almost like to call them the kind of language loops that I've developed. Once you get those loops down, if you were to hang out with me for a while and listen to me on the phone, you go, this guy's boring. Man, he's saying the same stuff all the time. That's right. And so once you get those loops down, this is a pretty easy conversation to have.
Okay.
So I say to this guy, hey, listen, so typically this is how I normally buy. I buy what I call owner financing, and all that means is that we would agree on a monthly payment. Obviously, it's got to make sense to you, but it also has to make sense to me, where we would do a monthly payment for a period of time that we can agree on, and within that time frame, we'll pay you the rest of what we owe you. And so, Joe, I wanted to ask you, if we could structure that in a way that made sense to you, would you consider taking a monthly payment until we pay you off in full within that time frame? So this guy, he's not quite sure about all this. He's like, oh boy, I don't know about that, but you know what? I got to get out of Oklahoma. I need money. How much would you pay for rent? And of course, it's not rent because we're doing owner financing. But I don't even correct the guy. I just leave that alone. And I say, well, listen, you're telling me that you need some money. How much money do you need? I'm not shy in asking that question. How much money do you need for now to be able to go? Now, he's already told me he's got tax liens, which tells me he's in trouble. He can't refinance the house. He can't pull money out. This is me reading between the lines and all this, right?
Which you have to do based on what you're doing.
Yeah, which is what you got to do. So he says, boy, if I could go out now with $30,000 cash and do a balloon payment a little later down the road, I'd be open to that. So I said, well, listen, I might be open that if we can work it out, I got to get over to your house and look at it. But if we can give you the $30,000 cash, I might actually be able to give you a little bit more. But what I'll do at my end is I'll just pay the taxes and the insurance. We'll give you an infusion of cash now so you can go do what you need to do. We'll cash you out later. He says, oh, I would definitely do something like that. So let's just say these are the numbers we have right now. So let's say now I offer him more than what he asked for. I offer him 40 grand. We went in the house. I got the pictures. We're going to do like a $10,000 polish on this house.
Okay.
The exterior of the house looks great. Just needs to be power washed.
So just kind of putting a little bit of lipstick on the pig.
A little bit of lipstick on this really nice looking pig.
Yeah.
Is there ever is there a good looking pig? Anyway, so I'm going to say so it's 10 grand for the polish, but let me even throw in 5 grand for closing costs that we're going to cover. So at $55,000. Now I can get pretty easily. I can get access to 8% money on my private lenders.
I like it. Yeah.
55 grand at 8%, my friend, is $366 a month. Do that. So the rental comps are $2,000 a month rental comps for this property.
Okay.
So now I'm going to pay taxes and insurance. Let's just say that that's $300, which I think I'm a little fat on that, meaning I'm a little high. But let's just say it's $300. We'll be really conservative, and I'm doing $366 a month for the private money. Let's just round that up to $400. So I'm out of pocket $700 a month. I'm cash flowing $1,300 a month. This guy's happy. He takes his cash. He's happy. And maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, we cash him out on the rest that we owe him. Yeah. We're not paying anything to this guy monthly. He gets the cash he needs to go start his life over, which is really, I suspect that's really where he's at right now. So he was pretty positive last night. We haven't talked yet. We have it scheduled. Actually, it's about a half an hour after we end our call. I'm on this call with this guy, with my client, so that we can see if we can land the deal. That's the creative kinds of stuff that I get to do when we talk to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the front end. Then you got the back end. So the front end is where you get the seller to agree with you, and you can measure this and say, I got some pretty good equity. By the way, I would very likely put it on the market, that house, for $249,900 is what I would put it on the market for, looking for my what I call a tenant buyer. Some people call that the rent to own buyer, but I call them a tenant buyer. They're a tenant, and I'm putting them in a position to be able to buy over a period of time. Okay, so it's very, very creative. So
Yeah.
at 249.9, we potentially buy the house at, I'm going to shoot for 160,
Mm-hmm.
and then we put in that. So for 160 minus that 40,000 that he's going to get, so I'm going to owe him 120, and I'm going to sell the house, I hope, for the 249.9.
Which you never know, but
on the inside, there's good equity, good cash flow.
yeah, and that's a great example. It sounds like you've done your homework on that type of stuff too. But it's like it's to me, it's a no-brainer. Would you rather, again, go in and buy at the market, or would you go in and do stuff creative so you have, again, more houses, more units to be able to purchase potentially, and really at the end of the day, hopefully make a heck of a lot more money? I mean, what
Yes.
you're doing is sound. I really believe that. You know what I mean?
Now, for those, and I've worked with a bunch of folks, for those that already own housing, right? They already have rentals. Now, I have some rentals and some multi-units that I do. So I haven't gone down this road, and I probably could get creative with it if I wanted to. But I've had these things for over a decade. I don't do anything, man. It just swells, right? So I'm good on my multi-units. But on the single family, I don't want a renter in a single family. I want a tenant buyer in my single family home.
And why is that? Because they take care of it, et cetera, et cetera.
And I get a non-refundable option deposit up front.
Yeah, you get an option. Yep.
Which is a significant amount. So I work with people who are not who are buy and hold people. Now, of course, if you would put them into a creative situation where you put a tenant buyer in there, some of those houses are definitely going to sell, but you're going to cash flow more money because you're going to get a premium on rent. Mm-hmm. You're going to get an infusion of that NROD, that non-refundable option deposit. Now you're not managing the property, and you get a higher price on the back end because you can sell it for more money because of the client that you're drawing to yourself who can't right now qualify for a mortgage. So we find that maybe it's about 30% of those people actually buy. So if you're in a buy-hold situation, if you understand how this all works, you could really maximize your profit on that as well.
Yeah, I think I've never done rent to own or partner to own, whatever you want to call it, which has been a mistake. I sold a bunch of my real estate, but I still have a bunch also, but because I want to put money in my business, we're expanding, et cetera. But I think people should, it's just one more thing that they can do to add value to their portfolio. I mean, there's, there's whatever, fix and flips, there's buying commercial, there's buying whatever the case is, but at least I think people should at least consider renting to own, and who knows, maybe, you're coaching too, which we should probably get into in a little bit, but I think it makes a lot of sense, at least to look at.
So it's interesting that when I throw rent to own, when I use that term, that's a universal term. A lot of people get that, meaning that they get at least somewhat of that concept that, oh yeah, I kind of know what rent to own is. And they may be right and they may be wrong, but I got to tell you, the rent to own, when I'm talking rent to own or a lease option, there are a few moving parts there. But what stops people is that although they think they know it, when they start pondering it, they go, I probably wouldn't know what to do. And that's why they don't do it. I know a lot of people that own a lot of housing. I don't know why they're not. Well, I do know why they're not doing it, because they don't know what the process is where they feel protected.
Yeah, but
everything I do is about protection.
But what I would say is, as long as you go into it with open eyes, you know exactly what's going on, you do your research, you partner with the right people, I think it makes a lot of sense. Because, think about it. I do understand that people are, worried about the paperwork, the documentation, because that's what can kill you, really.
Yes.
But as long as, you go into it with someone who's experienced, I think that will help a ton. And it lowers the kind of the risk, the concern in that regard.
Yes, of course. Yeah, we always want to surround ourselves with people that we know that are a little further down the road than we are. Otherwise, you're waking up at 2 a.m. wondering, oh man, am I doing this right or whatever? Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Plus, sometimes they call them partners to own, but they they care about the property. So generally speaking, you're not going to have a trash property. They're not going to take all the piping off the whatever off the kitchen because they care about the property because they own it per se. And there's a huge benefit in that because you're going to have limited or not limited, but lower or discounted repairs as a result because they're going to be taking care of it. So it's not going to have the normal wear and tear that a renter would have as in possession to a rental. Here's an example. Actually, have you ever washed your rental car?
That's a great question. No.
No. Yeah. But have you washed your own car? Probably so, because you own it. Same thing with partner to own, rent to own, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
All right,
when you get skin in the game, when there's skin in the game, you tend to play better in your sandbox, right? You're like, wait a minute, I just put a chunk of money down on this thing.
Right. That's a good point too. Yeah, you don't want to lose it too. So okay, so you tell me about your coaching deal because I think it's pretty unique the way you position it, and I think it's pretty cool. I think the audience, either the viewers or listeners, should really pay attention here because what you've put together is a pretty good little gig.
Yeah. So I can tell you this, that as far as maybe the best way for me to say this is, as far as information by way of structure, like if you wanted to learn about owner financing, you can go Google it. We got more stinking information out there as far as structure goes and things like that. In fact, I think we're overwhelmed with it. Everyone's got a version of whatever. What I'm really trying to work on with my coaching, it's really about access to me. Because I got to tell you, and I don't know if everyone can see, I don't know if some of this is audio, if it's all video. This, what I'm holding up, is my cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the money is made. It's about knowing how to handle this. It's about being in control of the conversation. Mm-hmm. You got to learn deal structure. That's a little hard to come by. You can't just Google that because deals come. Man, almost every deal I've ever done is different. But once you get fundamentals down on deal structure, and then you know the language, even though it's English, Kenner, it's like learning a new language, but it's not as overwhelming. Once you learn the loops, this is where the money is really made. It's having that initial conversation. My coaching is focused more on let's make sure that we teach people to know how to have that conversation in a way that, first of all, they can identify a quality lead with the potential for creative financing, which I'm saying is the best way to build wealth. You're building wealth where, you're basically getting, there are three streams of income initially that happen when you get a deal like this. So you get cash now, that's that NROD, the non-refundable option deposit. You get cash flow, you get an increased rent because you can get a premium. Mm-hmm. And then you get the back end, which is cash later. You get that equity when the house finally sells at some point in the future. Mm-hmm. This is true wealth and how you build that. So what I'm trying to do with the people that I'm working with who now have access to me, I'm not plugging them into a program. I got some stuff they can look at. There's no doubt about that. But I promise you that's not where the real learning is going to take place. It's because they have access to me within a community where together we're motivated and dedicated to helping each other to get their head around this thing and start building their wealth in a way that they couldn't imagine any other way, that is. So and especially, it's really catered to the individual.
And especially if you're not using your own money, because I know with creative financing, sometimes you could get by with not using any of your own money, which sometimes could be an advantage, but sometimes it could be a disadvantage, by the way. But
sure.
That makes it pretty nice if you're not, because therefore your cash on cash rate of return is going to be pretty darn good.
Yeah. So everything in me and what I'm doing with the people that I get to work with, I guess we call them students. I like to call them clients because they're really coming with high motivation. I really only want to work with people that are highly motivated. It just like anything else. When you learn something, it takes some effort, but once you learn it, then things become easier. You know, we were talking before we jumped in on this call. We were talking about racquetball. Now, I love playing racquetball, and I'd say that I'm pretty decent. I don't want one of your folks here to find me though and go, oh yeah, and they take me out there and go, oh man, I nailed his eye to the wall. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But in my little world in New Hampshire, I played pretty good racquetball. But I didn't come out of the womb that way. Now I'm athletically inclined. I got hand-eye coordination. I like to play sports and competition and all that stuff. But I had to learn some routines. It's like anything else. I learned certain routines. And now I think if you watch me, you'd say, wow, Scott, you make it look easy. And it is easy. But there are fundamentals that are always going on because of what I did at the beginning when I learned how to do this. And I'm telling you, it's the same when you learn a discipline like, this sort of thing. It's the same exact thing. That's what I focus on with my students.
Which makes a lot of sense. It really does sound like me. So a little off topic, but in case you're wondering, I played against the Michael Jordan of racquetball back in the day when I was quite a stud, or at least I used to think I was quite a stud at racquetball. And it was just an exhibition, but man, it was a blast. It was him and some other dude, Cliff Swain and some other dude. And it was a blast. It was so much fun. Racquetball is the best sport ever. But as I mentioned, I'm now a pickleball player. But anyway, I digress. Let's get back to the conversation. I could talk about sports all day, right?
Same here. Yep.
Yeah, I hear it. So, okay, so help me a little bit. So give me a little bit more help and knowledge on on creative finance. How about this? What's the best deal you've ever found, or the biggest deal, or somehow the most profit you've ever made from, let's say, a creative financing deal?
You know, this is interesting too, because I had never done it before, and it was just one of those things that, you know, the more you know, the more you set yourself up to know more, kind of a thing. Once your eyes, you can see more stuff, and you get some of those fundamentals down. It's almost like you could throw something else I've never thought of before, and I go, hey, I think I see something here, right? Mm-hmm. So the one deal that's coming to mind that we really made the most, this was our gross profit on this was like $186,000. It was a terms, meaning it was a creative financing, fix and flip. Okay. Is what it was. And so we went into it. I was thinking initially, you know, once I started talking to this guy, and this was a long conversation over a couple of months. This took some hand holding. This was a guy who was a hoarder, huge house. The house was only about 20 years old. You would think, how bad could it be? Oh no, this thing was bad. It was
really a real hoarder.
He was a true hoarder. His wife had died a couple of years before, and he literally buried himself in this house. The guy was brilliant, though. He was a computer engineer guy, and that's where he lived. He lived in this little room. He had 3 big screens. Super nice guy, but definitely a recluse. Didn't want to go out. Didn't want to do anything. And I met him. It was really through a Google pay-per-click is how I got the initial contact.
Okay.
And so it took 2 or 3 email conversations before this guy would even get on a phone call with me. And I just had to build some trust to say, let's just do a phone call. So I finally get him on the phone call. But he doesn't want me coming to the house. So we do a couple of more phone calls. And I had to really work with this guy to say, hey, this is a no judgment zone. I'm just here that let's see if we can be helpful. If we can't, that's okay. I usually kind of have one foot out the door. Hey, there's no pressure here. If this is not what you want to do, I'm really okay with that. I'm kind of have this approach. And it drew this guy in to say, okay, I think I can trust this guy. Brilliant guy, super nice guy. So I get in the house. I go, oh yeah, this thing needs a lot of work. We end up buying the house. I don't know the exact figure. Maybe it was about $190,000 house.
Okay.
The ARV on this thing was like $650,000.
Oh, so it was even more. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We put in, oh my goodness, 180 grand into this house. This had a big 3-car garage. It was a beautiful, beautiful house. And this all happened in the middle. Well, I say it happened. It was right when the COVID situation hit in the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we lost a little money on the front end because we lost our team. We lost our plumber. What should have been a 6-month process took us about a year to get through.
Gotta love it. Yeah.
What happened to real estate prices, though, during COVID? They skyrocketed.
At one point, yeah.
Yeah. And we were at the position that it really skyrocketed for us. So we got the house. So we bought the house, though, on terms. I bought it on creative financing. I put $100 down on the contract. And we had deed to the house. We owned the house.
Okay.
So I didn't have to go to a private lender and borrow $190,000 or $200,000 to acquire the house. And we had it for 12 months. I had the term for 12 months. So no cost to a private lender or a hard money lender. Our only cost was get our team in and do the work, pay them along the way and get that work done. Okay. And then put them on the market. And we made about $186,000 on that one deal. That was a big one for us for a creative fix and flip is what it was. Creative financing, fix and flip.
So let's say, devil's advocate, let's say there was no creative financing. Would you have gotten that deal?
Oh, yes.
You would have gotten the deal?
Sure.
Would you have made as much money?
No, because I'd be paying. First of all, I'd have paid even more holding costs than I would have thought, because who knew the pandemic was coming? Right. So that really delayed us. So we would have had more holding costs at that point. We still would have made enough, I guess, to justify it. If I'm guessing, maybe we would have walked out of it maybe making 80 or 90 grand. Now, for a lot of people, they might be thrilled with that.
Yeah.
I think we easily doubled that because of our circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the reason I asked those questions, kind of leading questions. I wanted you to amplify the fact that, creative financing added enough value there without a doubt. That's the reason.
So I'm not going to creative financing because I need it. I'm always going to creative financing first.
Mm-hmm.
That is the cat's meow. Always go for the creative financing first. So let's say I exhausted that with this guy and he was like, nope, I want my cash. I want out. Now, I will give you some of the other ways that I was able to get creative. That this guy was, he was agoraphobic, right? This guy was hiding in his house. He was scared. He didn't know how to go get another apartment. And I said, well, listen, maybe we can help you with that. See, one of the things that we want to do, and what I really try to do within my community is, if you have a heart for people, I'm telling you, the doors begin to open. Because this guy did not have the wherewithal. He wasn't going to buy another house. This guy was in his 70s. He needed a place to stay. He said, man, I don't even know how to get an apartment. I got a realtor on my team. I said, let's find this guy an apartment. He said, well, my credit's bad. I said, let's see what we can do. And it's in that process that those doors started to open. That's the creativity that you're bringing that then makes you very credible in the eye of the seller to say, yes, I'm willing to do that. Because now they see a way out and it makes sense. That's the kind of stuff I'm teaching.
Yeah. So, okay. So what's a typical engagement like? What is it? How much dough do I have to have, et cetera, et cetera? Let's just say I'm, trying to sign up with Big Scott.
That's it's almost like, man, that's, you mean to sign up with me?
Meaning, remember, you're Phil Jackson, as I said at the outset. So I want your coaching. I want to see what it's like. What's the engagement like? Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, it's a conversation. One of the first things I want to make sure is that we really have a genuine fit. So my goal is to not just bring somebody in. I've been doing this long enough that I want to work with people who really are motivated and really want to be able to do something, right? And so I don't want the person that's coming in and chasing the dream. I want someone that's saying, hey, I'm committed to learning this and building my wealth. That's the first. I want to have conversation around that. So, and as far as the entry goes, I can be creative. Listen, my name is Scott. You didn't know my middle name. My middle name is Creative, Scott Creative Poirier, right? So I can also be creative with those coming in, as long as I'm that I have a strong sense that this is a highly motivated individual. We can even work terms out to really make it where I can make it as easy as possible for the entry to come into the program.
Okay. All right.
Which is why I'm very, very selective, because I got to have confidence that the person's going to fulfill this. Right?
Okay. So let's say we've gotten over that. Let's say you have confidence in me as an example. Then what's the next step as far as engagement, working with Phil Jackson or you?
Yep. So you're going to enter into a community. So other like-minded people that are going to be in my community, then we have engagement. It's weekly and it's within Zoom, and I'm on that call for however long I need to be on that weekly. And so if you've got questions, you're struggling with something, or you have wins. One of the things we'd love to be able to talk about are wins, because wins are inspiring.
That's a very good idea.
And that's really what pulled me into and learning a lot of this stuff. When I saw credible people going, they're doing it, and if they can do it, why can't I do this? I can do this. I think we need that community. Now I also have, I guess you could call them my modules. You can plug into stuff. But I think what's unique about my program, because there are a lot of programs out there, Kenner, let's just, be frank with it. You buy the program, you plug into the system, you watch the modules, maybe you have a couple of support calls, and God bless you, right?
Totally. I agree.
What I'm doing is I'm actually investing in a community. It's not just, it's really not a pay to play. Yes, there's pay, there's commitment to coming into the program. And frankly, the stuff that I know is pretty valuable. It is valuable.
It is valuable. Right? Yeah, I'm sure.
It's not just something you give away ultimately. But I want to keep that community in place. That's a community that you're in as long as you want to be in it. So there's not a deadline on this. So if I can help you with 1 deal or 10 deals within this community, that's what we're motivated to do. And then there's the quality of the community that has networking qualities.
Let's talk about that, because that's very important. Let's talk about that. Go over the community and who's a part of it and how they add value to one another, because I think that's a big component of it.
So sometimes you can have people that maybe they excel in one point of the real estate business. Maybe they are super good with this, or maybe you get someone that's in the community and they've got deeper pockets than some other people. You might have a private lender in there that's reasonable,
Yeah.
With their pricing. And then of course there's JVing on all kinds of things, whether if it's with wholesaling or fix and flips. We got some different talented people that do different things, some that work in multi-units. So now you're in an environment, it's trusted. It's a trusted environment. And you got different people with different skill levels that you can either network with or partner with, or, I guess that'd be the way I'd say it.
Yeah, I got you.
A lot of levels on that.
All right, so I guess I should ask, if you want to mention the price, what does it cost now in 2024 going to 25? How much does it cost to be a part of that community?
It kind of depends, because right now, let me tell you what I'm doing right now. So here we are, we're in May of 2024. And what I'm doing right now is I'm building this next level. I'm building what I'm calling a beta group. So I'm building just 15 to 20 people. And it's designed to literally build the overall program. And so I can tell you that program in and of itself, that's a $7,500 program, but I'm not going to charge $7,500 for it, because I want to bring in those highly motivated people that are going to come into the group. They're going to help me build it, because I'm going to build modules around them. So this is where you get this access to me that frankly no one else is ever really going to get, because we got to build this next level of this system, catering to that individual. So I've got all these modules that don't answer what I think the questions are. It answers the questions that your typical client or student is going to have. So it's going to be catered to that. So I can tell you this, that's going to be discounted pretty good. I guess I'm hesitant to say what I think the price is, because it's going to be a conversation.
Yeah, no, I get it.
That the initial entry is $7,500, but I'm going to work with that, because if they're willing to come in and help me build it, I'm gonna give a pretty good discount on that. But I think it has to be a conversation. Let's make sure we're a match.
Yeah.
And then we can talk price, because I think if price was the issue, we're probably not a match.
I remember when you and I were talking, you had some pretty hefty fees, but that made sense at the end of the day, because you were adding so much value to your students, or as you call them, clients. I mean, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. I'll pay $1 million if someone will make me $10 million. I'll pay $1,000 if someone will make me whatever, 10,000, whatever the number is. I think it makes a lot of sense to pay up for, as long as there's value there. Yeah. All right. So let's stick to your coaching. What are some of the wins some of your students have had, as far as, not you, but some of your students have had? Maybe, we could kind of project that on some other people who are going to be listening, because I'll remind you, we're going to have, 12 to 16,000 people are listening and watching. It's going to be a webcast also, or what we call, some people call webinar. We call it Vastcast. And then at the same time, these are all entrepreneurs, real estate investors. So what are some, kind of key takeaways or some key wins that some of your students have had?
Yeah. So I can think of several here. There are some folks that I've worked with that for them, what they needed more than anything else, that they just needed to get their first deal. That's just what their primary motivation was. Man, I just got to know that this really works. I got to get my first deal.
Yep.
And I've got, multiple students that certainly has happened. Now, I can tell you, and I haven't followed everybody, because there's just too many students to follow.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
There are some that are just trying to supplement their income a little bit. So they got the first deal, they feel better about it, and maybe they pick up 1 or 2 deals a year, and they're very, very happy with that. There are other people who are very motivated, like I was coming into this, and no, I really want to build something significant. I might call that an empire, right? I want to own as much property as I can own. I've got a student that I've worked with in the past, actually in the Florida market, who started with bandit signs. And he was, I want to say this respectfully in case he's ever listening. And he's a great guy. I love him. If I saw him, I'd kiss him right on the cheek. I love him that much. I really would.
Yeah.
But he ran too fast. He was trying to fly out on his own, and man, he left some money on the table. And I was like, we'll call him Bob.
Yeah.
In fact, we'll call him Bob, and we'll say his name backwards. Oh yeah, that's Bob. But anyway,
very good, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, that was really weak. Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes with some of those students, I got to pull them back a little bit, because they're running too fast. They're running ahead too fast. But this guy has built a great real estate business primarily using bandit signs. Now he may be doing some other stuff today that I'm just not aware of, but that's how he cut his teeth.
And so yeah, I get you. So okay, that's a good added value element or added value scenario for someone listening, watching. Okay, so how about this? I got a couple other questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Why you? I mean, I understand you've kind of gone over kind of the whys, but truly, like, what's going to separate you from whatever some other coach? I mean, I need a little bit more kind of information because I know
Sure.
I know you as a person. I know I've heard from other people who've worked with you that you add value, but I'm looking for something just a little bit more unique that
Yeah.
the viewers and listeners could take away and say, that Scott dude, I should go work with him.
I think it's the same reality of why sellers and buyers would work with me. One of the things that I teach, and I try to live this as authentically as I know how, we want to be transparent.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest hurdle for anybody looking in, whether if it's at me or anybody else, it's trust.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people saying a lot of stuff, bragging about a lot of things. In fact, my inclination is when I hear someone just talking about the gabillions and all this and all that stuff they have, the more they say that, the less likely, frankly, I really believe it, to be honest with you. It's just something within me. But the thing that allows you to work with people in general is they really have to trust you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So the only way to do that is the only thing I know to be is to just be open and transparent. The way you're hearing me talk right now, this is who I am. Try to be, I'm definitely engaging. I love people, but I want to be straightforward as well. And I genuinely want to be helpful. But if I can't get somebody over the trust line, then I'm not going to get them. So that's what I've worked at with my sellers and buyers. And it works with my students that if we can engage this is why I want the conversation. So we can do what you and I are doing right now. Let's just talk it out. And I would suggest just use your own intuition at that point. But let's talk it out. Let's see where we are. Let's see if I can help you. I might not be able to help some folks. We may have the conversation and go, Scott, his jokes are bad and his voice is slightly annoying.
And he only has one T.
I get it. So it's probably a conversation, but it's the trust barrier more than anything else. It's trust.
I get it. So why don't we get ready to land this plane? So what would you say? How about this? What have we not gone over thus far that you think with respect to creative financing can add value to the people who are watching and listening out there in Timbuktu who probably might want to get into creative finance, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. I think the number one thing I might say that is the other barrier is kind of the 6 inches between our ears. Mm-hmm. It's usually the head talk that's going on. Yep. And people that are listening right now, you've got head talk going on. We always have it. And so we do have a tendency, and this is just a big part. I've got to cover this stuff when I'm working with my clients because they got to get through the negative head speak. And it's not that we get through it by eliminating negative head speak. It's always going to be there. It's just trying to teach people to not trust the negative head speak because most of it is just not reality. So I think that's part of the key to mastering this is that once you can get the right thinking in your head about what you're telling yourself about you, once we can break through that at a better level, I'm telling you that the confidence in what you're doing here skyrockets. Yeah. So there is an element of making sure that we're checking in with ourselves and it's going to sound philosophical, but thinking about what we're thinking about. If I can help people think about what they're thinking about, they may go, dang, am I thinking that kind of stuff? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that may be the thing that's in the way here. Yeah. Let's identify it and move it out of the way, and let's keep moving forward.
Scott, that's some good stuff. Scott was only one T. Yeah. That's some good stuff there, buddy. I think that from the little time we spent together, I think people would definitely know, like, and trust you. I mean, they, at a minimum, like you. And then, of course, trust you afterwards because, you're a good guy, and the stuff you're speaking, I think, really can add some value to some real estate investors. And again, we've got a lot of them here. So,
that's great.
If anyone's interested in getting a hold of you, how does one get a hold of you?
I'll tell you the easiest and best way to do it is going to be at two levels. I live on Facebook. Okay. And that's just the focus that I have on Facebook. By the way, and I have a group that's there. It's just an open group, but you can just look me up on Facebook. Scott with one T, and you just put in my last name. I don't know if you'll throw a link in there on that, Poirier. Just do that on Facebook, or you can email me. So you can email me at Scott with one T at Scott with one T reblueprint.com.
All right, just one more time. Can you say that one more time?
Yep, Scott with one T. This is my email at Scott with one T RE as in real estate RE blueprint regular word blueprint.com.
Awesome. Thank you. And do you have a website as well?
So I don't. I've been investing my energies on Facebook.
Yeah.
I might come to maybe more like just a landing page for people to see who I am. But my personality and what I'm doing is actually expressed on Facebook. It's just better. I don't know. Websites are kind of stagnant, right? It's too static.
I agree with you.
But I'm posting. I do reels. I do all kinds of stuff. You're gonna see the real me on the Facebook.
Yeah, I get it. I was just right before you and I jumped on. I was watching a kind of a webinar, the beginning of a webinar, and they were talking about that exact thing. Like, who needs a traditional website? Use Facebook, use Instagram, because more of your personality comes out, and that means more than just being informational as far as all your stuff about your company. It's pretty interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So what I would say is thank you very much. And with all sincerity, I really appreciate this. I think there's some people who are going to be out there who are going to, at least think about, it probably makes sense to look at creative financing because it might be hard to get deals done, et cetera, et cetera. And as I've discussed, it just widens your universe, opens your universe, gives you more deals potentially to look into, which is pretty cool.
So the big hook on the front end is so you can do this with none of your credit. We try to do it with no debt. And no, I don't have any bank debt. I'm not working with banks. I'm not saying I would never work with a bank, but not in creative financing.
Yeah.
So I'm working with private lenders, people, to use your term, people who know me, like me, and trust me. That's why I can get low interest rates on this. So we're talking about not using our money or very, very little of it, very low risk to no risk, and none of my credit. That's not a part of this game. This is using other people's debt for you to leverage, where you make it a win-win for the seller, your buyer, and for yourself.
Hold on. Before we close up shop, let's say someone's looking at a deal. I should have thought of this earlier. I apologize. Let's say someone's looking at a deal. Somehow they get a creative deal kind of going or percolating. Can they bring it to you or one of your students? I don't know. And all of a sudden you guys could do some type of a joint venture or whatever to invest in that deal?
What I would want to do is make sure that on the front end that all right, so this is perfect. So the invite is, we got to have that conversation. Let's have a conversation. And let's see what makes sense and what the entry points are. Because we can this is where I can get creative. We can have different entry points. What I would love to be able to do is to train people to do the stuff that I'm talking about. But sometimes we have people that are a conduit to the deal, but they don't really know what to do with it.
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah.
We have ways that we can work in that situation.
Sweet.
And that would be something that I probably would be very interested in doing. And so there would be a level of access to me on that, right?
Yep.
So it's a win-win.
Yep.
So the answer is yes.
All right, you guys out there, hopefully that can add some value to you, because that little idea I came up with, patting myself in the back, I would say is a pretty good one.
I can see it, yeah.
Yeah, it hurts. I break my arm patting myself in the back so much. You know what I mean? Scott with one T?
There we go. Yeah, that does kind of hurt.
Yeah, you understand.
Yeah.
All right.
Kenner with two N's. You do spell it with two N's, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, I would say, hey, this is Kenner with one N, just like I say, you, Scott with one T.
People just call me 1T now. Anywhere I go, they say, hey, 1T. So that's kind of the name, 1T.
Yeah, that works for me, man. Totally.
Yeah. All right.
Kenner, right. Good stuff, man.
Awesome,
Good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you for the time.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Kenner French with VastSolutionsGroup.com with Vast Voice talking, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. Hopefully, we've been able to add value once again to you. And if we have, or if you have any input, please go ahead and email info@VastSolutionsGroup.com. Once again, this is Kenner French signing off. Thanks, everybody.